What should we teach? You know, the human brain is an interesting instrument. They say that we only use 5% of it. I don't know who said that or where they came up with that number, but I think the point is that we're not using all that we can. I wonder what it is that we're using it for. You know, sometime in the 1450s, this guy came up with an idea. He did something nobody had ever done before. He printed one of these. It wasn't the first book, but it was the first book that had ever been printed. And they say he started a revolution. And I'm inclined to believe it because by the end of the century where he was doing his work, there were 10 million books in Europe. 10 million. That's all copies of all books that had ever been published that were still existing at the time. But 100 years later, there were 200 million books. And 100 years after that, there were 600 million. And 100 years after that, there were 1 billion books in Europe. 1 billion. 1 billion books. Seems like kind of a crazy number. And again, that's all copies of all books that they had anywhere in Europe, ever. Kind of makes me wonder how many books actually have been written. Actually, in 2010, somebody at Google decided to figure that out. They didn't guess. They actually added them all up. And they came up with 129,864,880 books. That's a lot of books for me to read. I don't think I'm going to get through them all. Actually, there's good and bad news. Good news is most of us aren't reading books anymore anyway. We're looking at these. If you've never seen one of these, it's a hard drive. What's on our hard drives? You know, this guy, in 1997, said some interesting stuff. He said, first of all, by 2000, we'll be able to store all the data everywhere in the world. We'll have enough storage space on all of these hard drives. It turns out he was right. Easy to make a prediction when you're only 3 years in advance of the curve. But he said something else. He also said, the typical piece of information will never be looked at by a human being. Well, that's weird. Then what's all that information? Well, let's take a look at the way things are now. You know, last month somebody calculated the broadband usage statistics going to your house, and they figured out that 1/3 of all network traffic was Netflix, and a full half was Netflix and YouTube combined. What the heck is on YouTube? Well, if you take a look at YouTube's statistics page, you find out that 100 hours of video are uploaded to YouTube every minute. Wait a minute. Every minute? Every minute 100 hours of video are uploaded to YouTube? What the heck is in all of that video? So let me get this straight. 7 billion people are using 5% of their brains to generate 6,000 times more content than any human being could ever possibly absorb. We're bound to have a little bit of confusion and be overwhelmed and wonder, how is it that we're supposed to absorb all this content? So what the heck do we teach? Well, I think there is a way around this. And I think that what we need to do is find out what is the difference between information, data, and knowledge. I got an idea how to do that. I want to define things this way. Knowledge is information or data, we use the words interchangeably here, in a particular context that leads to action. Aha! Now we have taken all of this information and knowledge out of the cold digital hard drive data structure and returned it to a human element, because it takes a human filter to apply context to this data or this information and turn it into something actionable, something that means something to a human experience. Who does that? Well, it's the same people who have always done it. It's the educators. It's our job to filter through all of the possible information and put it into some context and understand which information is valuable and which information, quite frankly, is crap. It's our job to put that together. It's our responsibility. And frankly, we're going to be accused of the same things we've always been accused of. We're going to be accused of subjectivity. We're going to be accused of missing things that we should have shared. All in all, we still have to apply that responsibility. So the bottom line, what do you teach? Teach what you want. Just make sure it's the right stuff. For Big Planet, Small World, this is Jeff Holton.